All right, everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Are you ready to get your hands dirty with some city council minutes?
Always up for a challenge.
Okay, good, because we've got two meetings from June the 17th and the 20th, and let me tell you, these minutes are packed. We're not just talking about dry procedural stuff here.
Definitely not.
We're talking about the juicy bits, the debates, the resolutions, and all those little moments that give you a glimpse into the real political drama going on behind the scenes.
Oh, there's drama, all right. Let's just say I spotted some underlying tensions, some interesting alliances, too.
Ooh, interesting. And you know what that means. Our listeners are going to walk away with all the insider knowledge. They'll be the most informed people at their next dinner party. Guaranteed.
And probably the most opinionated, but hey, that's Montreal politics for you.
All right, so June 17th. Let's dive into these minutes. They're kind of like a play in three acts, right?
I like that analogy. You've got your opening act with those questions from council members, always a good source of early drama.
Totally. And then you've got the public getting their say, which is always interesting. And then, of course, the main event.
The resolutions,
Yeah,
the contracts, the nitty-gritty of city governance in action.
exactly. And in this particular production of Montreal City Council, the opening act did not disappoint. There was that moment where Mayor Plante called a question of privilege.
Ah, yes. That caught my eye, too. Not something you see every day.
Definitely not. So, for those of us who aren't fluent in city council jargon, what does that even mean? And why is it such a big deal?
Well, it's a pretty rare procedural move. Basically, it means the mayor felt that a council member's comment wasn't just disagreeing on policy. It was, a more personal attack, questioning her motives or integrity.
Ooh, so a bit below the belt.
You could say that. It suggests there are some deeper tensions simmering beneath the surface of those polite exchanges.
Juicy. It makes you wonder what was going on behind the scenes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if this tension resurfaces in future meetings. But moving on, another item that stood out to me was that resolution addressing safety concerns for women during the F1 Grand Prix.
Right, the Grand Prix. It's a huge event for the city.
Yep.
But it also comes with its fair share of, well, headaches, right?
Exactly. And this resolution highlights something we see a lot in these minutes. It's that constant balancing act. On one hand, you want to host these big events, bring in tourism and revenue.
Sure.
But on the other hand, you have to consider the impact on residents. Safety, noise, traffic.
Yeah.
These are all legitimate concerns.
Absolutely. It's a tough needle to thread. But you know what else struck me about these minutes? The sheer volume of contracts.
Page after page.
I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling, the scope of what the council deals with.
Well, that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Those pages represent millions of dollars being spent, all in the name of keeping the city running, everything from electricians to road work to...
The supply and installation of prefabricated equipment for utility vans.
You see, you're already fluent in city council lingo.
Hey, someone's got to keep an eye on these things. But seriously, why so specific? What even is prefabricated equipment for utility vans?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. But it highlights a crucial point. These contracts, as dry as they may seem, have a very real impact on your life.
Totally.
That utility van equipment, that could mean a quicker response time if a street light goes out on your street.
Or if a water main breaks.
Exactly. These are the nuts and bolts of city services that we rely on every day.
So you're saying I shouldn't just skip over those pages of contracts?
I wouldn't say skip, but it is where a lot of people's eyes glaze over.
Guilty as charged.
But understanding how that money's being spent, whether it's operating budgets or capital expenditures.
Hold on. Back up a second. What's the difference?
Oh, right. Operating budgets are for the day-to-day running of the city. Salaries, park maintenance, that kind of thing. Capital expenditures are the big-ticket items. New buildings, major infrastructure projects, that sort of thing.
And now we get to the part where we hear directly from Montrealers, the public question period.
This is always my favorite part of the minutes. It's a chance to hear what's really on people's minds.
Absolutely. And this time around, we've got someone asking about the lack of free parking at a specific hospital, someone concerned about a proposed bike path on Terrebonne Street, and another resident worried about an abandoned building.
It's interesting how these individual concerns often speak to larger issues facing the city. Like with the parking, it makes you think about access to healthcare, right? And the challenges of having so many cars in the city.
For sure. And then the bike path, that brings up the whole debate about making the city more bike-friendly, but also making sure it's safe for everyone, especially kids.
It's complicated. And with the abandoned building, you've got questions about Property values, neighborhood safety, the city's role in revitalization, it's all connected.
So it's not just about listening to these concerns, but also understanding the bigger picture, right?
Exactly, and that's where the LA responsible notation comes in.
Right. You mentioned that earlier. Can you refresh our memory on what that means?
Of course. So next to each question or concern, you'll see the name of the city councilor who's responsible for addressing that issue.
So it's a way of holding them accountable.
Precisely. It gives citizens a direct point of contact to follow up and see if any action is being taken.
I love that. Okay, let's move on to the June 20th meeting. This one had a slightly different vibe, wouldn't you say?
It did. A bit less heated, a bit more ceremonial, but that doesn't mean it's not important.
Exactly. There were a couple of declarations that really stood out to me. The one celebrating Sun Youth's 70th anniversary and the one for National Indigenous Peoples Day.
Both really significant. Sun Youth does incredible work in the community, and it's great to see them being recognized.
And the Declaration for National Indigenous Peoples Day felt especially important given the city's commitment to reconciliation.
Yes, and I think the language used in that declaration is worth paying attention to. It's not just about acknowledging the past, it also talks about concrete steps the city is taking to address the legacy of colonialism.
So looking beyond the words to see what actions are being taken. Okay, last but not least, we've got to talk about the money.
Ah, yes, the budget. Always a hot topic.
To put it mildly, there are pages and pages of contracts, approvals, all sorts of financial details.
Well, that's what city council does, right? They manage the city's finances. And it's important to understand where that money's going because it affects all of us.
Absolutely. So what were some of the key takeaways for you? What jumped out at you from all those numbers?
Well, a significant portion of the budget is going towards infrastructure. Roads, public transit, water systems,
Yeah,
those essential services that keep a city running.
makes sense. But it's not just about keeping the lights on, right?
Yeah.
What about things like social programs or cultural initiatives?
Those are important too. And we do see some funding allocated to those areas. Affordable housing, community centers, arts organizations. But I think it's fair to say that infrastructure is a major priority for the city right now.
Which makes sense, given the age of our infrastructure and everything.
Exactly. But the point is, these budget decisions have a ripple effect. They impact the services we have access to, the quality of life in our neighborhoods, everything.
So what can our listeners do if they want to have a say in all of this?
That's the question, isn't it? The best thing you can do is get informed. Read the minutes, follow the budget process, and most importantly, reach out to your local counselor. Make your voice heard.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've done a pretty good job of dissecting these city council meetings. What do you think?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully our listeners are feeling a little more informed, a little more engaged with local politics.
That's what we like to hear. Because at the end of the day, this is about our city, and we all have a role to play in shaping its future.
Absolutely. So until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions.